Gentlemen and women, if you're on here, athletes, coaches, thanks so much for joining us in our fourth and last masterclass. Again, just to reiterate, we are going to be uploading this at a later date once we clip out things and make it a little bit smoother. It'll be available at thefaceoffacademy.com. I'm not sure if we're doing this on YouTube yet. So guys, first thing we're going to talk about is just the stance. Greg has put in a stance breakdown YouTube video from his page, just kind of discussing how we want to get into our stance. The reason why we are in that style of stance, guys, is based on angles and math, not just this works for me. If you look at 99% of face-off guys at the Division One level and at the pro level, everybody's knee is turned towards the ball and shoulders are turned towards the ball, as opposed to being upfield where they used to be, just because, again, it works so much better because we are cutting angles versus just pressing forward. And you'll see that in that video right there.
Yeah, so if you look at any YouTube videos, go through and look at face-offs at the college level, pro level, whatever, before 2012, you would see a bevy of different weird stances. Some successful that are complete dinosaurs now, some not. After 2012, when we started our first tour on the FOA, we broke down the face-off and for the first time based it on science and biomechanics. And we started turning everybody on an angle, 45-degree angle. So we always say the three non-negotiables for a stance is right knee pointed towards the ball and the opponent, right toe is locked, left foot is up to the line. Those are the three non-negotiables. And we go over them in that video, that first link I gave you. And the reason for that is before we came along, we saw a lot of guys would look to the right and they would lean over the midline. Now, by rule, anything can lean over the midline. But nothing can be in the neutral zone, which is to the right of where the plastic starts over that column. So on the whistle, guys would try to kick their elbow out and roll over the ball, but they'd also fall upfield. And everything was always about keep your hands light, keep your hands light. But what we talked about, and the FOA system is very firmly rooted in wrestling. And the idea was on the whistle, before the whistle, your right hand is light, but after the whistle, you transfer your weight to your hands. So wrestlers made very good face-off guys because they're used to transferring their weight back and forth from their hands to their feet. Take the back, turn, all that stuff is very easy for wrestlers. So that's why it was kind of simple for those guys to pick it up. For everybody else, it was tough in 2012. They looked at us like we were nuts. Now, as we have that stance breakdown, you can watch that video. It's very finely explained. The non-negotiables are something we never, ever move on. Some kids like their knee maybe a little inside their hand. Some kids like their knee off the line and in an open stance, as we call it. And we work with guys on that. But the three things that are just non-negotiable when you train with us is you have to have your knee point on that angle, like we said. Your right toe has to be locked. And locked meaning cleats in the ground. We don't want your toe down. And I don't care how fast your hands are. You never see an explosive elite level footwork guy with his toe down, not locked in the ground. Because when you sit your toe down, there's nothing propelling you into the ball. So what happens is you'll see the guys with their toe down and they'll be sitting back and their butt will be close to their heel. And what happens is your center of gravity is now over where your butt is. We want our center of gravity up, tilted on the right kneecap. So when you lock your right toe, you lean up on that right knee. Now your center of gravity is over your right knee. So what we want on the whistle is when you stick your right hand out and you punch it out into the ball, we want you to naturally tilt into and over the ball, and we call it the column. That neutral zone after the whistle becomes the most precious thing on a face-off, because if you can get your weight distributed over top of the column and get your helmet over that, you're going to win almost every face-off. So on the whistle, we want you going into the ball. Guys who have their right toe unlocked, when they extend their right arm, they push themselves back. Watch film on any guy who has a toe down. Happens on every single rep. And what we want is we want everything working synergistically. So that's why the left foot should be up to the line, because then it makes your body angled. No face-off guy in a knee-down stance, like if I'm down here, I shouldn't be here and have to turn my head. If I approach correctly, all I should have to do is just lean over, okay? And that's the reason our stance looks like that. Now, we level our system, okay? The FOA, we have a system-based training. We don't come in and Jerry teaches one way and I teach a different way. We have the same lexicon, same vernacular. Every drill is named the same exact order. And we modeled it after like a martial arts class where, you know, I grew up on Shotogan karate. If I were to go to 45th Street in Philly and train with a sensei, I know exactly what the way the class is going to go. If I go to North Carolina and happen to go to a different sensei, same system, I know exactly what the vernacular is going to be, but it's a different pair of eyeballs. And maybe they can see something that my other sensei didn't if I'm training. Same thing with the FOA. If my kids go with Trevor or Jerry and they train with them all the time and they happen to be visiting New York, they know exactly the way we're going to train them from top to bottom. So everything has to be the stance correctly first. And if you just start throwing out all of these random different things, you know, if we just start teaching different things, it'll confuse the kids. And that's where you get, you know, all of these minor issues with their technique and everything. So the stance is our bedrock. That's what we base it on. And we work so hard on making sure it's solid. Okay. Once we have the stance correctly, then we can move on. So that's where the warm-up portion comes. And I'll put that link in here as well. Jerry, do you want to kind of break down quickly what we go through with the warm-up?
Yeah, guys. So first thing we do is we start with our chops. That's just firing back and forth over the ball. That is not a face-off move. It is not designed to make you better jumping over the ball. We never do that. It's just to kind of get some blood flow going, loosen up our wrists, loosen up our shoulders. I tell my guys all the time, if you're just sitting there doing chops back and forth, you're better off getting a job at Chipotle cutting onions. That's where fast hands kind of, in that situation, kind of comes in. It's just to get your blood going, say, hey, it's time to really lock down and do this. Then we will go into, we'll do one set of chops. We'll do our wrist twist on both arms, like 5 twists each side. Then we go back down, another set of chops, 10, 15 seconds up to the athlete. Then we do our overhead side bends, loosen up that lower back. Always a great one. Last set of chops, then the American twists on each side. And then I'd like to do a little pec stretch behind my head. And then we get right into our move sets. And I'll let Greg take it from there.
Yeah, so, you know, that stuff that Jerry just talked about, because of the knee down stance, is so detrimental over time to the human body. We do a lot of work on loosening up the hips and low back, because unlike any other position in lacrosse or most sports, we are in a repetitive, consistent motion all the time. That's why we were able to use biomechanics to train this position, because you don't need hand-eye coordination. Okay, I can close my eyes and clamp a lacrosse ball because it's always in the same spot, right? So what we want to do is constantly work on opening these guys up. On the YouTube channel we literally have PTs. And I have multiple videos that I've posted out about my own routine about mobility and flexibility, because that is so important, especially if we're going to continue to do knee down face-offs. Now, when we do our warm-up, everything we train, like Jerry had just touched on, is a face-off motion, okay? And we've talked about this before. There are so many gimmicky things that people try to use either just to be different or just to kill time, right? Juggling, putting a ball back and forth over a shaft, I don't know, all kinds of weird things. One-handed clamping, okay? I have a whole video, if you go on that playlist, called Drills to Avoid. And in theory, yeah, a weighted shaft, like that'll make my kid stronger, right? In theory, if I do anything two-handed, if I practice it one-handed, it'll make it better. That's not correct, okay? And there's a lot of detrimental things out there. There's a lot of misinformation, like, you know, wrist rolls. This is not a face-off motion. Wrist strength and wrist rolls. This is a completely exaggerated thing when it comes to face-offs. This is a face-off, not this, right? So everything we do in our warm-up is exactly what you would do on a face-off, because we tell people all the time, if you just work on hand speed drills, okay, juggling, or, you know, you might as well go stack cups and go into like a blackjack dealing competition if you think that just hand speed is hand speed, right? It doesn't correlate. And I know some of you guys are laughing, but it's ridiculous how many of the people out there teaching face-offs do this stuff. And we always say, like, you don't have an hour and a half to do this, right? It's like going to the gym. You want to knock it out. You want to be efficient. You want to go home. You don't want to sit there and take selfies in the mirror, all right? So we want to get in and then get out. So quick clamp, our first moves. Here's our first move log. Quick clamp. Right hand punches into the ball. So every single time we face off on a knee, the right hand has the same job. The right hand's job is to punch the ball stop into the ball. That's simple. This is the motion of a face-off, not this, okay? We're trying to get rid of that extra motion and worry about the top sidewall, because the ball is lined up here. It's not lined up next to your throat where you just have to do this, right? So we want to line up, and we want our forearm, our right forearm, on a slight angle, and we call it a press motion. We're going to press the right hand. So if you think about how we want to explain this to kids, the right hand is the gas. The left hand does the steering. The left hand determines what move we're doing. So quick clamp, okay? And all of this, once again, is on that last link I just sent you guys. Quick clamp is right hand punches in, left hand barely crosses the midline. So if I'm lined up on a face-off and the midline is on the knuckle side of my, on the fist knuckle part of my hand, after the clamp, my helmet should come over the ball every time, and I should finish with this side where my finger knuckles are barely touching the other side of the midline. Okay, that's how little that left hand has to punch. Back when the ball was lined up here, yeah, big 9 to 10 punch. We don't do that anymore. We just barely cross the midline. Then the power clamp, same motion with the right hand. The only difference is the left hand now goes to 12 o'clock because our goal is to peel a guy off the ball on our first motion. After we go to the power clamp, then we go to our plunger. Plunger, right hand punches into the ball again. Now we're lifting the left hand straight up. Okay, so quick clamp, power clamp, plunger. The right hand does the same thing every single time. Okay, Jared, do you have anything to add to the first moves of the warm up?
Yeah, and again, guys, like we said, everything we do in these situations, it is absolutely imperative that you bring your head over dominating the column. Because if you do any of these moves and your helmet's going different directions every single time, you're going to find completely different results. So if you're quick clamping, get your head over the ball, you'll have success. But if you power clamp and throw your head up towards what we call 12 o'clock, and you follow your butt end with your helmet, you're going to actually peel yourself off the ball, and you're going to be like, why doesn't this move work? If you bring your helmet over the ball, your force goes in and peels back your opponent's top rail, as opposed to your head going upfield and then you slipping off the ball. Same thing with our plunger motion. If our helmet's not over the ball and we wiggle our stick or we try and pinch our stick, if our body goes backwards or doesn't come over the ball at all, our stick just pinches around nothing. But if we lean over the top of the ball, that pinch now slips underneath, and we'll use the term as a knife. We knife through the ball over the top because we're dominating the column. Every single move we do, if our nose isn't over our right glove or our nose isn't over the ball, you're going to see a drastically different outcome, because we are telling you that in order for you to execute this move, your weight needs to be in a certain position. So if you're doing this and pushing away, you're going to see a completely different outcome as opposed to coming over the top and being able to see everything as well. So that's one of those non-negotiables that we were talking about.
Yeah, 100%. And just to answer a couple questions real quick, is there any type of exercise to help in the face-off? Yeah, we're going to go over that towards the end. And then the left hand goes when you plunge, it's not into your armpit, 100%. You know, and we say we have two different types of flex. We have an oblique angle flex, like most heads, and then the CEO and like kind of the burn face-off, they're face flex heads, which means they peel forward like a soup ladle. Guys who have face flex heads tend to come over top of the ball and then bring their left hand into their armpit. We do not want to do that. What you want, and let me just talk about it. So let me go down this angle. If a left hand comes barely across the midline in a clamp, basically that's how far away from your body it should go on a plunger. So when you do a plunger, you lock your right elbow and you lift your left hand about 6 inches in front of your shoulder, but it comes straight up. The height is more important than coming out here, because the higher you bring your left hand up, the more that top sidewall cuts down. This is what we're looking for, to cut underneath your opponent's top sidewall. Okay, so that's a great question. And yeah, you don't ever want to bring your left hand into your body, because what you're doing is you're pushing the weak part of the plastic towards your opponent. What you want to do is come out so the strong part of the plastic meets the ball. And then after we go through those first three first motions, okay, the second move is what we spend a ton of time on. So you have two options. You have the saw down after impact. So impact is when the right hands meet each other. You work on the saw down and you work on the screw drill, and they work on two different planes. So the most important thing right now, if the ball's lined up here, is to get to the ball in impact. And then we have 3 reads, okay? Now, 3 reads as far as a 50-50 is concerned. If you smoke the guy, yeah, get to your feet and get out of it. But if we get to the ball and I make the quick read that I have slightly more than half the ball, I'm immediately going to lift my left hand. I'm going to drive my right hand down into the ball. I'm going to saw with my left, and then I'm going to exit. okay? And what the saw does is it wiggles the ball all the way into the throat and pushes your opponent's plastic away. And we work a ton on that because we tell our guys, with thousands of people training on face-offs now and the margin of error being this small, when you make impact, the first guy to react and keep an active left hand, we yell that all the time. The first guy to do that and respond is the one who will win. And the guys who sit back and freeze, they're the ones who get crushed on the second move, okay? So your first option is, if you have slightly more than half the ball, saw down, finish it, and get out, okay? Second option is, if you have slightly less than half of the ball, you're going to saw down to get a piece of it, and then you're going to do what's called a peel off. Basically, it's a power clamp. So you're just going to saw and then throw that left hand down on the ground 12 o'clock, and then you swing around your opponent. And basically what you do is you saw in, and then you peel their whole head back by throwing your weight into that, and then you exit right behind them, okay? And this is all on that video link that I sent, by the way. And then on the third one is, we call it saw down belly to helmet. And we actually were elated this year watching college lacrosse before it got cut short, because across the board, college face-off guys were doing that more than ever. We do not teach you to reach around and hook your opponent's arm or re-jam or any of that garbage. If you lose the clamp, we teach our guys, swallow your ego, bail on the clamp, and immediately step to your right. So you're on your feet over top of your opponent whose helmet's pointed towards your belly. And now he has one step to exit. So now you wait till the right hand comes off the ground and you effect his exit. So all of those drills, those footwork drills, are all in that warm-up. So when the kids come in, every single time they come in for a draw day, a VIP lesson, anything, we work on chops to get the hands warm, clamp, power clamp, plunger, saw down to an exit, saw down to a peel off, saw down to belly to helmet. Okay, and all of those videos and all of those moves are on that last link I sent. Anything to add to that, Joe?
Yeah, and guys, just so you know, I know there's a lot of other moves that exist. I would highly, highly recommend not adding them to this situation. If you're teaching a kid 15 different moves, you're only taking away from the 2 that he's actually going to do, right? What does every guy do on Saturday, when you're watching film? Every single guy's going for that pinch and pop in some sort of variations, whether it's a plunger, a quick clamp to a pinch, a power clamp to a saw, to a lock, to out the back door, something like that. It's all this, if you really dumb it down, it's all the same move. So teaching the guy like a jam, or teaching him like a top or anything like that, like older moves where like it used to work, you're only taking away from that kid getting better at hitting that move. I akin it to shooting free throws. You don't need to teach this guy to shoot anywhere else on the court other than just hitting that free throw over and over and over again. Let him get good at that. Don't teach him moves he's never going to do. We call those fool me once moves. It will work once. He'll be 1 for 10 and he'll nail it. And then he's going to keep going for that hit over and over and over again. It's just not going to fool anybody. That's great. So that's why we don't have extra stuff on there. So that's why we keep it short and sweet. 3 moves. He's only be good at 2 of them, and he's only going to like 1 of them. So that's why we keep that short. So you're not having this guy do 150 different drills when he only really needs to be good at 2.
Yeah. And also it's important to know, like, just touching on what Jerry said, this quick clamp, power clamp, plunger, that's your prime numbers of face-offs, right? Everything after that is a variation of those, okay? So for instance, quick clamp, if you get your quick clamp and you win it, you can exit in every single possible exit. Power clamp, same. Plunger, same. So everything is built off of that, okay? So let's go over those first moves again. We have our quick clamp, power clamp, plunger, okay? And what they lead to is our different types of variations. So we have our pinch and pop, right? So a pinch and pop is a plunger into our pro hop, which we crush guys on. You always get to your feet, right? So I drive into the ball, I get my plunger. Our pro hop is designed to do multiple things, okay? And I'm gonna have Jerry actually explain that, and I'm gonna bring up the video of the pro hop that explains it in detail that you guys can watch later.
So guys, the pro hop, in any situation, the pro hop can be multiple different things, like Coach just said about being a prime number. This is a prime situation. Whether we win, we're going to get to our feet when we have the ball, and when we lose, we're going to get to our feet if we don't have the ball. So we're going to get right into those situations. The second I see I have success with my clamp, my power clamp, or my pinch and pop, I'm going to get to my feet turn the field, basically turning my chest to the bench or to the parents on the sideline. And what this allows me to do, it says, all right, I'm going to read where my opponent's going. If he rotates with me, I basically have a free fast break with no contention. My opponent doesn't rotate with me, and he's going back to block my exit. I can go out the back door, which is towards my own cage. Or if I don't like either one of those, I have the option of TTL. It's a triple option of facing off. I read what my opponent's giving me. I don't say I'm going forward, I'm going forward. That's ego. And what a lot of guys are going to have trouble coaching their guys with is crushing that ego, because every face-off guy wants to go forward, score 100 goals. Guys do not want to TTL through their legs, pick up a solid ground ball, soak a check, and then pass it to the defense and then get off the field. Guys don't want to do that because it's not highlight reel. But those are the plays that win games. So if you have a player who says, I'm going to make my life easy, I'm going to go with what he gives me, the TTL covers, or sorry, the pro hop covers all that. But the absolute ground level minimum that you have to do is turn the field and get to your feet. Again, turning the field, if my chest is facing the net right now, I turn my shoulders towards the sideline. That allows me to exit towards my left shoulder for a fast break, or towards my right shoulder out the back door for a slow clear after that, or a TTL through my legs. That is why that's so important. That also gives me the ability in the situation where I don't have a ton of the top of the ball. If I only have, like, let's say 55, 60% of the ball, once I get to my feet, I can rip up using that bottom side rail to pop that ball forward if my opponent over rotates. And it happens all the time with guys. Guys will say, oh, I had that clamp and you pulled it out from underneath me. How'd you do that? Well, I didn't rip off the ground because that's weak. That's hands versus hands. If I get to my feet and I literally use my legs to all but power clean this guy off the ground when I'm popping that ball out, the ball's normally going to come with me because an object in motion tends to stay in motion. I'm going to be the first guy to rip and pull that ball up, and I'm lifting him off the ground with my legs as opposed to just pulling out to the side with a hand speed style situation.
Yeah. So what we have done with our system, right, is you get your first move and your second move down, and the second moves are your 50-50 moves. Then we have your exit. So in 2012, I remember, growing up, you faced off, you basically clamped and you tried to rip it out somewhere. But there weren't like designated exits, especially counterclockwise motions, right? Before 2012, you could rotate counterclockwise on a face-off. You were like a genie. Now it's just standard motion for a standard face-off guy. So the exits to the left shoulder is an offensive exit. To the right shoulder is a backdoor exit. So here's the front door, offensive. Okay, that's a pinch and pop. A back door is you get the ball, you pro hop, and then you roll that wrist back towards you, and you go to the right. Okay. The third exit is a defensive exit. So anything that turns counterclockwise is called a defensive exit. We're going away from you towards, away from our opponent. Now, you got to be careful because people have asked, is this in reference to where you are on the field, or is this in reference to where the face-off guy is? We made it very simple. It's wherever the face-off guy is. So I could technically rotate on a win and then pull it out on an offensive exit going towards my own goal. But anything that goes out in front of me towards my left shoulder is an offensive exit, okay? Backdoor is right. Defensive is counterclockwise. And the fourth exit is our TTL, through the legs, okay? Those are the four exits. So then what we do is we introduce the first moves. We teach the kids how to pro hop, and I just put that video up there, that link, the pro hop. And like Jerry said, it's the triple threat. It's the triple threat of face-offs, okay? And then I also added a link for the defensive draws, the counterclockwise motion. So after we teach the first moves, then we teach that pro hop, and now you have kids very simply can do quick clamp, power clamp, plunger, and then they can do any exit out of that. So now we've taught you the three portions of a face-off: the first move, then the like after impact, locking the ball, and then your exit. And that's the three portions of the face-off. Okay. Now, when we teach our moves, okay, we obviously they're abbreviated, right? So let's break it down. A plunger into a pro hop and then using our offensive exit, that's a pinch and pop. Okay. We get to our feet, we pop the ball forward. Okay. A back door is a clamp, power clamp, or plunger. We finish it and we go to the right shoulder. Okay. And then the TTL through the legs, that's very self-explanatory. You can either go to the wings or you can go to yourself. And we always tell guys, when you go TTL, you always pop the ball through your legs and you open with the left shoulder, okay? You don't want to open with the right shoulder because your opponent's always on that right shoulder in front of you. And if I pop it through my legs, it opens the gate for him to make it a one-on-one contested ground ball. So what we do is we pop it through our legs and open our left shoulder, and that is a natural box out to give you that first or one or two steps on him, okay? Then we have our defensive draw, okay? Clamp and power clamp into a counterclockwise motion, all right? And I put that link there for you guys. And then I have another link, the defensive 270. And the defensive 270 is when you use a plunger into your counterclockwise motion, okay? I just put that link up for you guys. And the reason we call it a defensive 270 is a defensive draw turns you, okay? If I'm on an angle, 45-degree angle here, I'm gonna clamp, cut, swing my legs around, and exit 180 degrees away from my opponent. But a defensive 270, I'm going to plunger, and as you'll see on that video, I'm going to cut in hard, and I'm actually going to turn on a dime, and when my feet land, I'm going to continue with my right hand, and the inertia of the ball stuck in my pocket is actually going to get me 270 degrees around, okay? It's really hard to counter once a guy does that, all right? So those are kind of our move sets, and as you can see, they're layered. Teach the stance, teach the first move, teach all 4 exits, and now a kid can literally do anything out of those prime numbers, out of those prime first moves. All right. Jerry, do you have anything to add to those?
Just touching base on something you said. The ball doesn't get stuck in your stick when you're doing that 270. The net is always underneath the ball while you're pushing out. So yeah. Don't confuse that. There's just a cradling system underneath that ball on your exit.
Yeah. So you'll pinch it in your plunger. And then as you come out, the inertia of you bringing your right hand up keeps the ball underneath you. And that's how you can pull it all the way across to your left shoulder. Now, the little nuances. We tell our guys that anytime we practice a move, when we do it in our draw days or in our clinics, if Jerry and I are lined up, we call them dummy draws, right, to practice our move sets. We tell the guys when they're dummy drawing, if I'm doing it with Jerry, I'm not going to line the ball up here and half clamp over top of it. The reason behind that is this is already pretty much a face-off win. So what we've seen in the past is kids will line up like this, and a guy will go to clamp, and he'll be like, "Coach, I'm kind of pushing the ball into my teammate's stick." Yeah, because it's almost impossible to get that ball because the ball's already in there. So you're giving these kids a false sense that they're doing something wrong. So what we do is we have the teammate put the ball up here on the corner of their stick and put weight on it. And what that does is it trains our kids to drive into the ball, so they can get it if they do it correctly. And then they finish off their move. And as soon as they finish their move, they have to exit and catch it every time. Okay? So if I'm doing it with Jerry, I'll do a pinch and pop. As soon as I do the pinch and pop, Jerry stands up. I pop the ball out. I catch it every time. And then I get rid of it as quickly as possible. Because what we've noticed is kids will sit there and they'll just clamp and sit on a knee, or they'll do a live rep, and the guy who wins the clamp, he kind of just stops, and the guy who loses the clamp stops. That's not a face-off, right? A face-off is gaining possession, and we pride ourselves on having guys ready in college to face off, exit, and get rid of it right away. That's like our biggest point of pride is our guys are ready to catch and dish the ball so that they're not a weak link when it comes to popping it out. Because we tell all of our guys, we know you know how to clamp when you get to college. But the most constant thing we hear from college coaches is, yeah, he's just not good on ground balls, right? I have this kid, he's got fast hands, but he's not really good on ground balls. And it's like, well, that's because he didn't practice all the way through when he was in youth and high school. And he has to be able to do that. So that's why we do that. So then we have those are all of our move sets, right? The one little move that's kind of different from a knee is called the click and drag. And anybody who was in with us on the SNG day, we talked at length about the true plunger. And the true plunger, when you're standing neutral grip, is not a rollover method. You're punching into the ball, and when you do that and you squeeze, the ball actually lifts up, and you catch it here and pull it out. So the knee down version of that is a click and drag, where you will do basically a plunger, but you'll stay on your knee, you'll reach in, and then you'll pull it out right away. So it's just in and out. Okay. And we tell guys that shouldn't be your first move, but if you are battling all day with your opponent and you guys are driving in, going head to head, and then all of a sudden you just try to pluck at it and pull it out real quick, you can really catch them off guard. So we do work on that. And here's the video for that. I put it in an email, but I want to make sure you guys have it. And this is kind of like a change up gotcha move. But that's the only move that we allow our guys to stay on their knee to pull the ball out, because every other move, we are on top of them. You have to get to your feet before you exit, especially if they ever decide to move the wings in a little bit. You know, obviously that's going to be just to keep kids safe, because ripping the ball out on your knee, all it does is move a loose ball from the face-off line to 5 yards away from you, and now a wing can pick it up. So we want total control of where we exit. Okay, Jared, do you have anything to add to the movement sets?
No, guys, and that click and drag move, that's what I would call a fool me once move. You're not just going to sit out there and just try and pluck the ball against an elite opponent. If your guy just has faster hands, this move will work. But in that situation, if he's beating the guy to the ball anyways, he should be pro hopping just to lower the opportunity of him losing that ball. A good question came in. Is there any type of rake that can be applied to a knee down? Yes, there is, but we don't recommend it. And the reason why we don't recommend it is because the ball's in the middle of your stick, so there isn't a ton of advantage to just raking down the line. That is a superior fool me once move. You'll get a guy with that one time, because you have to throttle that left hand back. And if the guy just looks down the line, he knows exactly what you're going to do. We teach our guys to push down the line into the ball, right? We want to move that ball from that centerpiece into the throw of our stick. So we're already countering that move, and the guy's just going to have to hit the ball well. And then even if he does, now he's on a knee, his shoulders are crossed, his knees to the opposite side of his body. He's going to have to make an athletic play. The reason why you see that it works in the PLL is because, again, the ball's high. It's not in the middle. It's higher. So you have a higher percentage of just hitting that ball before your opponent reaches it. That's why you'll see it knee down in the PLL, and there's success. But in high school and college, we don't love it, because you're doing it because you're faster than your opponent. And if you're faster than your opponent, all these other moves should work, and you control the ball. If you just smack that ball can go 15, 16 yards. And if your opponents see that that's working, they're just going to set up their long stick just to come and pick up that ground ball before you have the chance to pick it up. And even if you do, they're going to assist you with some damages thereafter, which you're not trying to pick up.
Yeah, and that being said, we don't really go over it much as a first move, because we're not crazy about it. But when you have a very athletic face-off guy and he's proficient in the plunger going into the ball, it's not a bad move to use as a changeup, because if Jerry, like Bones Kelly in the PLL, watch him during this PLL championship series, when he added the quick rake off a knee to his repertoire after the All-Star break last year, he was giving guys fits, because, I remember the last game against the Chrome, he went almost 80%, because you have to face off completely different if a guy's raking compared to when he's doing a plunger. That's why during our SNG talk, we were talking about how this misconception of standing neutral grip is just a one-trick pony. It's way more dynamic, because if Jerry and I are facing off, I don't have any clue what he's doing. I'm going to try to read his right hand and guess, but if I guess wrong and he's raking and I think he's going to plunger, he could smoke me, right? So it is way harder to get it, and basically on the whistle, all you do is pull your fingers back, and you pull your left hand up and away towards your head. That's a quick rake off the whistle. And yeah, like Jerry said, 1 out of 10 face-offs, it'll work, but it's not something that'll work consistent. But like I said, if you have a super athletic guy that wants to throw it in there once in a while, it will keep guys off balance. I mean, Bones went like 80% in the last game of the season, going back and forth between that and the plunge. So now we went over our offensive-minded ideas, right? Now, so here's our counters. Like we said before, we don't teach jams, because, one, for good reason, I think jams shouldn't be allowed on face-offs. It's just, you're just taking your shaft and you're basically pinning a guy's stick. And for good reason, I'm glad it's almost completely outlawed at this point. If you hit a guy's head of his stick with your shaft, if you land on it in any way, shape, or form, 9 out of 10 refs are just going to call you for withholding, and they should, because it's not a face-off. All right. Now, the other part of that is we've seen guys in the past, they come around and they rip the guy's arm. That's also illegal. And to be honest, we've had multiple kids that we've coached hyperextend their elbows at the college level when that's happened to them. So that's also not allowed. What we teach our guys, number one, is belly to helmet. I'm in a clamp with Jerry. I'm fighting, and I notice I'm losing the clamp. I'm not going to spend any more time. I know we gotta reprogram kids away from their egos. That's why we spend so much time on our feet in footwork drills, because we're trying to reprogram kids out of the idea that a lost clamp is a lost face-off. Okay? What we want to get, and we tell kids this all the time. No college coach, when he sees you go 12 for 13 in a game, does he care how you went 12 for 13. If you lost every clamp in a game and you went 12 for 13 because you got belly to helmet and stole the exit back, you've got a coach who's elated with you, right? So we're trying to get kids to realize once you lose the clamp, you immediately stand up, you stand over top of your opponent who's still on a knee, face down in the ground, line your belly button up with the top of his helmet, and anywhere he tries to rotate, you stay belly to helmet. Once his right hand comes off the ground, he goes to exit. That's when you step in and you check the right hand. Okay, and that's by far the most effective possible way to counter in face-offs. Everything else puts you down into the ground where we don't want you because you've made the exit very clear, right? Remember, you get one step, you're supposed to, one step after you acquire the clamp. So if you make the guy who has his face down in the ground have to make the decision first, and you don't give him the wide open exit, he's going to panic. Okay. And that's what we try to tell guys. Get belly to helmet, try to steal back half of your clamps that you've lost. And instead of going 10 for 20, you've now gone 15 for 20 in that game. Okay. The second is the shovel. The shovel counter is if your opponent, he's there, he's battling with you, and you notice he has most of the ball and his left hand's way in the air. You just step to your right, you go belly to helmet, but then as you go belly to helmet, you lift his left hand. Now his left hand's way up in the air, he's off balance, and you're belly to helmet. You're in a great position, okay? The third is you talked about that defensive 270. If an opponent has his left hand in the air and he rotates away from you going counterclockwise, you are now taking weight off your right hand as the guy who has the ball. And as he turns away from you, that's when you come around and go underneath and lift his right glove because he's turning away from you and you can pull that ball straight out. I know we had a game with the Redwoods this past summer. We had a definitive game plan because our opponent, every time he would exit, I would step to the right when he acquired the clamp to shut off his break. And as he rotated away, we had our LSM lined up at -5, and I'd come around with the reverse shovel and just pull the ball, and the ball would fly right out to our LSM. And that's a great move, but you never want to do it unless your opponent's moving away from you. Because if he's staying in front of you and you reach around, you're giving him the forward break, okay? Jared, do you have anything to add to those?
Yeah, and guys, again, just to reiterate what Coach has said, pulling that can sound like a wrist pull, but we're not pulling him. We're just disrupting his exit in that situation. So we're not yanking him forward. We're just around his right hand, disrupting where he's trying to push it, allowing the ball to kind of fling out from a different spot, as opposed to grabbing the wrist and pulling him forward. Hyperextending elbows, injuring wrists. I mean, I've gone against guys that have done it, and like your wrist just gets completely chewed up. It really sucks. And I wish they would officiate that a little bit better.
Yeah. And like right here, if I have it bent, like Coach is saying, you're not coming around and getting here. You're coming around and you're lifting where the head is off the ground. Okay. And then once this head's not bent anymore, once it goes straight, the ball flies out. And it's almost really easy to control where it's going to fly out to.
And last but not least, guys, for those of you who are playing in a little bit under-officiated conferences and stuff like that, and you are having guys who are doing that around the wrist rip, it's a pretty easy move to beat if you know it's coming, because that guy literally has to leave the ball, come up and come around. He basically pulls the curtain away before he brings it back in. So if your athletes are comfortable with that, they're like, okay, I know it's coming. He released, pop the ball, and then that guy just swings at nothing, and you have all that. He's never going to get to his feet and contest that ground ball. So if they are saying, hey, coach, I can't get to my feet in time, just pop it out and go and get it.
Yeah, and also, just so you know, if a guy is getting away from that and he's using that as a counter, but your face-off guy is faster to the ball than him, he should just go standing neutral grip. Then you just go standing neutral grip, pinch and pop, and it's impossible to counter that way. I had a guy in the MLL that I used to go against who would get away with that arm rip all the time. And in my last year playing, I just went standing against him and just nuked him. And guys won't have an answer because it happens too fast. So you're basically taking away the whole knee down thing and just stand up. And I was mad at myself. I was like, man, I should have done this 2 years ago. So that's definitely, live and learn. So that's something that you can tell your guys. Standing neutral grip, pinch and pop will just completely take care of that situation. Now, when we look at deficiencies, and this is what we talk about with face-off drills, okay? Not the actual, so that's all drilling, right? But that's movement specific, refining our technique. When we talk about drills, we don't talk about drills just to have drills, right? Just face-off drills to kill time. We have drills that are designed to correct specific deficiencies, okay? So for instance, we were doing a whole series of, we call them DODs, drills of the day. And if you go on the FOA, on the YouTube channel that we had posted here, you will see an entire list of FOA DODs on the Beast Lab playlist. And I'm just giving you a few of prominent ones. So for instance, a lot of guys, especially guys we don't coach, have elbow flare because they've been taught to obsess over the top rail or top sidewall. So everything about it is getting over. And it's almost impossible because they start in this stance that we call floaty elbow. The elbow's out like this, okay? If the elbow is the closest joint this way to the ball, it's the first thing that's going to move to then pull the wrist, okay? So that's why we tell our guys to open their stance, get their knee behind where their hand is so that you just simply do a bench press into the ball. That gets rid of it. But a lot of guys have their elbow out here. So we have a DOD there that Jerry posted that really specifically shows you what to do in order to get rid of that, okay? Then we have, in order to speed up your plunger, because what are the most prominent things we get asked about? We get asked, how do I make my hands faster? And how do I improve my reaction on the whistle? The second one only comes from training, right? Just spending time practicing face-offs, taking them with your friends, coming to draw days so that you get used to the feeling of a face-off, right? The first one, which is hand speed, is like everybody asks about it all the time. But this is the thing we always tell kids, and this is an important thing for coaches to understand. If I video a kid who thinks his hand speed is slow, 99% of the time, it's not about them being slow movement-wise because their reaction is right on the whistle. The difference between an elite guy and a very good guy is that our reactions are different. An elite guy, the first thing that moves on the whistle is his right hand. A really good guy, the reaction is he moves on the whistle, but maybe his elbow moves first and there's a delay. Or maybe on the whistle, he reacts, but he sits back. So he's not driving the ball into the throat, right? So once we have the stance correct, we do what's called the hand punch drill, where we will take the stick away, we will line up in our stance, and we'll have either a sandbag, a kettlebell, something here that we can punch into with the glove on. And we're teaching the kids to get rid of this rollover thing that delays their clamp and just simply keep their hand on the ground and just punch straight into the ball, okay? Okay, wherever that sandbag is or whatever, punch the knuckles straight in, and it trains your right hand to fire. So now you're getting rid of that delay. We're cutting out wasted motion. And everything we do with face-offs, our job is to get rid of your wasted motion, to make sure your angles and leverage are correct on the whistle. And then after the whistle, make sure whatever's moving is important and it's streamlined. So we can take your sprint away from this and make it this, okay? And that's all we're doing on face-off training. So that's how we speed up your plunger. We have the right hand punch, how to speed that up. We have the pro hop footwork drills, upgrading your saw down. Everything, every issue that any kid ever gives us, we've made a drill for it. And the drills are very applicable and they're exactly what they should do in a game to help them correct these issues. Jerry, anything to add to that?
Yeah, and coaches, again, the elbow flare is probably your biggest inhibitor for most of your athletes. I mean, 99% of my VIP sessions, it's just correcting elbow flare. That everybody reacts to the whistle pretty well, unless the guy is just not clicking on it. This is our biggest problem, is that elbow click, hammer fist. It slows everybody down immensely, and especially when you go against a guy whose right hand moves first. It's like in a sprint, when they fire that pistol, the guy takes one step back before going forwards. It's that detrimental to your ability to get to the ball. And now that drill is super easy. It's super palpable for even a new coach. It's just making sure that elbow is turned in. And I tell my guys, make sure your elbow is inside your pinky at absolute minimum, because anything wider, you're gonna kick out. Your body understands how to push something. It doesn't push like this. We never have our elbows this high. So that's why we try to just have that pushing motion where we're driving into it. Again, that kettlebell pushing drill, another excellent one. And then we have Greg, are you just posting all these, the pro hop footworks, upgraded sawdown, et cetera?
Yeah,
Are we going to
so
go over
just
those?
check your emails. Anybody who's on here who you should have gotten the email for this session. Every single link that we're talking about is on there. And then once again, it's on the Beast Lab Pro playlist for YouTube. The other part about this, and I'm going to send this for anybody who's looking for a training device or resistance. We've seen a lot of gimmicky stuff out there. We've seen, guys, like, we'll go back to this. So Mythbusters, guys weighing down their shafts. We've seen dads who are like, oh, I put sand in my kid's shaft. Fantastic. Now he's going to shred his labrum. So on a face-off, we have to remember that everything you're doing is an extension away from your body. So if you're moving a weighted shaft, especially at like a younger age, you're extending out here, you're going to just shred your rotator cuff. Okay. I know more is more, and that's what we were all raised on, but that is definitely not the case when it comes to this. We've seen guys attach a band to the top of their head, right, to a fence or something. And all that does is teach you to resist away from that, right? So you're pushing, and that actually really accentuates elbow flare. We've seen guys do one-handed clamps ad nauseum. Every single kid who does a one-handed clamp, if you see him show up, take a video of him doing the one-handed clamp. And then slow motion, you will see, hand back here, right? Elbow first, then pull. So now they've created, and I'm telling you right now, the right elbow flare is an absolute barnacle. Like, it is just so hard to get rid of once they have it. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep both our hands on the stick, and we developed something called the rep strap. And I think, anybody who's been in here who has tried it out, just go ahead and add that to the chat. But what we found is the FOA rep strap, we build it ergonomically. It goes around your waist. It attaches right here. Let me put the video right there. Okay. And basically all it's done now is mimic the exact muscles you use for a face-off. So you're training those muscles to fire at a higher rate. And that's all. Okay. It's just nervous system training, and it works because you're coming from your core. So it's the exact muscles that you'll use on a face-off. And Jerry and I, designed it selfishly because we wanted to train with it, and it's been pretty successful so far. The cool thing we've seen is you get biofeedback. So it's actually helping kids get rid of their elbow flare, because if you don't have any tension increase when you move your elbow first, so your body's starting to learn to look for that tension. And that's actually been a happy accident. We didn't even think about that when we designed it. So that's a great drill to use. Just throw it on, do your warm up, and then take it off, and then go through your live reps and stuff. Jer?
And another aspect to that, guys, is that this reps lets you finish the draw. All these other things, you're locked into the ground. So it's only teaching you to do a part of your face-off. You can't get up, pop the ball, and go get it. The reps will let you be mobile and go all over the field. Obviously, you don't want to be, shooting and passing with it, but you can get out, pop the ball, and go for that ground ball with those because it's on your hips, not necessarily locking you down to a tree, a fence, whatever.
Yeah. And Evan, you asked a great question. That was, that was a really cool game to watch, because the first game of the season, Zach Ornstein went against Ben Williams, and Ben crushed him. And Zach learned from watching film that if he rotated hard on his first move on the whistle, because Ben did have a habit of kicking his left foot out on the whistle, that if Zach could rotate quickly, he could steal the ball. And I think he won like the first 5 of that game. And what Ben started to do was, as soon as Zach would go to rotate, he would just kind of pull it out off a knee. But you would also see that we started to see more contested ground balls. So it became a war throughout the entire game. So yeah, that was a thing. But also then the ball was lined up a little bit different. So right now, back then when they moved the ball, like they put the ball down second, all that stuff, they were square. Now they're top to stop. And we would have hoped the PLL rules would have been enacted and the NCAA would have went in this direction to just slide the ball up higher. It would have killed all this SNG only nonsense. But right now the ball is going to be higher on the heads. So if you just rotate right away on the whistle, you might actually get beat forward. But Evan, we can teach all we want, but everybody has one little technical deficiency, right? And as a face-off guy, if you're in the middle of a game and you notice that pulling it out quickly and the wings aren't closing in enough on you, then hey, go for it, right? It's not a fool you once move if your opponent has a complete deficiency and you're going to make him pay for it throughout the game. But what we're saying most of the time is you make sure you get to your feet and pro hop every single time you go to exit, because that is the standard that will work against everybody. And then you can make those tweaks in game. And if you're learned and you understand all of these things here, like Ben did, then you can always ad lib and do something, different in a game to make a difference. Does anybody have any questions about the stuff we've all gone over here? What do you guys think about coaching knee down at this level? I understand that you guys are pro S&G against knee down, given the presumed. Yeah, so Dan, what we've always done is every clinic we've ever taught, we've taught both. We teach the kids knee down, we give them the basics, and then we also do S&G. And we've always told our kids since 2012, for every rep you practice on a knee, you should be practicing a rep standing. And I think that's why us feeling bad for kids, yes, okay, if we go S&G only, that's a bummer, but it's also we told you so teaching moment of you should have been doing this from the beginning for years. So we really believe in teaching both no matter what, and that way you have your bases covered, because no matter what, even if they keep knee down in, standing neutral grip is a whole different tree of moves that you can use. So every kid should have it in their repertoire anyway, because there's plenty of guys out there who are totally open to getting crushed S&G if you ever did it to them. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? And we'll also open it up to questions about some of the town hall stuff we were going over when it comes to the NCAA rules and whatnot. Jerry and I will be filming abbreviated version of that at some point that we'll post. But that town hall was mostly designed to kind of kill some of the myth busters that have been going on out there. There's been a lot of misinformation purposely sent out that we wanted to get rid of, but also we wanted to kind of keep people at ease to understand the history of the rule change and why they've been changing rules on the face-offs almost every other year since 2006. And it's initially to combat all the cheating that was taught, and that's why. Pete, you got me on the edge of my seat, man. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, so what I was told during the last the U19 tryouts, when I was talking to some of the U.S. officials, was they were saying the FIL is trying to move the face-off closer to that which is going on in the NCAA. So we noticed that during the tryout process that they were getting rid of what's called the swizzle call, which is fantastic. The swizzle call was used for years, and basically because the refs are back so far on an international play, they would say down and they'd be 5 yards back, and the guys who were facing off would basically be lined up with their hands like this. And this is not an exaggeration. Okay. Coach Madeline will tell you, he's seen it. All right. And it's basically prison rules. And you'd line up and the ball would be here, and then they would just blow the whistle. And when you line up, you're literally halfway over it already. And what the ref would do is he'd say down, and as soon as your gloves were on the ground, his whistle would be in his mouth, and he'd go, set tweet. So literally, you would go when you heard set. And 90% of the time, they let it go. And then 10% of the time, when you smoke a guy, they just call you for a false start, and it's a mess. So what we noticed in the U19 was they were doing a big set, let you wait for 2 seconds, then blow the whistle, which is so much better because we want the guys waiting for a whistle. We don't want guessing. And that, admittedly, me and Trevor guessed the entire 2018 World Games because that's what every country, the refs were just doing some version of a swizzle call. I would love for it to move towards NCAA.
Does knee down beat SNG? Speed, power, guys. It really just comes down to whose top rail is crushing into the ball, and if your opponent goes for an underneath rip, are you counterbalancing with your head being over the ball, crushing down on it, so that he doesn't get a good lift on your arm? So if I beat a guy with a pinch, and my left hand's out and and my top rail's over the ball, but he's ripping underneath me and my helmet isn't over the top of the ball, that ball is going to go flying out of my stick because my body's pushing and he's just saying, okay, I'm going to take this momentum and basically face off judo you and throw you over his shoulder. He's going to grab underneath the ball and ride out with your energy and rip underneath. But if I bring my helmet over the ball, I keep my weight down, I keep pushing as he rips underneath, he finishes his stroke, the ball doesn't come with him, and then I lock over the top defensive exit. So it is a chess match in that sense of who is more technically sound. But when you are SNG, if your move doesn't work, you're already in a default of belly to helmet. You're already to your feet. So even if I control that ball if the ball rattles in my stick, I have to hit over the top of the ball, lock it, get to my feet, and then get out. And the other guy has thrown one move and he's just sitting waiting for me.
Yeah.
So the SNG will usually have a little bit higher of a margin of error to play with rather than being on the knee.
Yeah, and if everybody looks real quick, I just put a clip in here. The SNG against Moto. SNG is a bottom sidewall dominant stance. So this is what a pinch and pop. This is a true plunger versus a knee down guy. As you can tell, I'm not rolling over the ball at all. I'm just sliding into it. And as he rolls over, you can see my opponent kind of sits back when he does it. I pull him right out. I pull the ball right out from under him. And that's how it works. Okay, so when people say, oh, you know, like I have guys who are out there saying right now that SNG is going to ruin everybody's lives, and that, you know, it's a one-trick pony and it's all raking. That is a pinch and pop right there. And the reason it looks like you're using the same move is because against the knee down, you're going under the ball while your opponent's going over it. That's why it's so effective, right? So when you are SNG, you're using your bottom sidewall. And we've told guys before, and this is when you go back to Gurenlian, okay, in the Final Four, when he was in the NCAA tournament, Coach Mattis was doing a great job of using Austin Henningsen, putting him in there first, telling him to go power clamp, power clamp, power clamp. And then your opponent is now used to diving in and trying to react to this rotation. Then he would change it up and put Gurenlian in there, completely screw your timing up. And while you're preparing to dive in and rotate, Gurenlian would just come right in, boom, under the ball, pull it right to his left shoulder and go out. And, you know, despite what some people might think, that is a difficult move. That is a difficult move to go against, and it's a difficult move to master. And, you know, you're going to have to talk to people who are proficient in SNG, but when you want to go against that, if a guy's killing you and you're going on a knee, you got to go SNG. You got to stand up against it because you have to steal back the bottom sidewall. Now, if a guy is only raking you, the best way to beat that is a quick clamp, right? So the misconception that we've heard before is if a guy's going to rake you, you want to push down the line. And when I would rake somebody, I would hope to God they would push the ball down the line for me. Because what you're doing is you're pushing it this way, and what I'm trying to do is pull it this way. So at the very worst for you is I pull the ball out. At the very best for you is I've extended you 3 yards to the right, and now I'm standing over top of you like Jerry was saying. Okay, so even if I lose the clamp, I'm over top of you. So what you want to do is get your weight over the ball and crush down. That's how you beat a rake. But if a guy is pumping you, SNG, pinch and pop, you got to get to your feet. You got to go SNG because he's just pulling the rug out from under you over and over again. Okay, and that's why I put that video there so you can see that. All right. All right. We've got a couple more minutes. If anybody wants to ask any more questions. And just a reminder, we will be spending the next couple of weeks kind of editing these, polishing them up a little bit, and then we're going to be posting all 4 sessions on our website. There'll be YouTube videos, but the links will be in the website. So that way it's going to be an easy one-stop shop. It'll be under online training, and it'll be underneath the masterclass drop down. Okay. Any more questions? All right. Pretty awesome. Coach, we have to find out when we can record the town hall. We have to figure that out. We have a lot of plates spinning right now. So we'll figure out, Jerry and I will figure out a time. We'll get Trev together and we'll do a town hall. We'll basically video it ourselves, and then we'll post basically what we had said before. We'll keep it in like a tighter sequence. But yeah, what we'll do is we'll probably drop that in the same exact online drop down as a resource for people to see. But, you know, the problem is we did that to make sure we could kind of get rid of some of the flames and cool people down with the whole rules committee craziness. However, you know, by the time we post a new video, we might hear more information on the rules change. Who knows? So we're just all kind of waiting to figure out who wants to say what and how kids are supposed to train. Because right now, I think we can all agree it's kind of a mess. Kids don't know when they can play again. And if they can play, they don't know if they should be standing or on a knee. We're telling all of our kids to just learn standing neutral grip as if it's going to go through. And if it doesn't, then you're great at 2 things. And that's all we're doing. Thank you. All right. So guys, we appreciate it, man. This has been awesome. If any of you coaches, whether it's college, high school, club, or anything, if you want to host the FOA once, we can get back out there, we're looking at a July kind of startup date to start traveling again. If anybody you guys want to host us, if any of you college coaches, we don't charge to help you out. So if you ever want to, have us take a look at game film, if SNG goes through and you need guys to come teach your guys or train your guys up and get them proficient at it, let us know. faceoffacademyinfo@gmail.com, and we will get to work for you. Okay. From me, I want to thank you guys, and stay safe and stay healthy, and hopefully we can get out on the field again. I'll let Jerry sign off for us.
Guys, again, thank you so much for spending time away from your families. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for everything, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.
Take care, guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
God
you.
bless.